everyone, it's Lucy from My Crazy Craft Life, and I'm here today with the August Flavor of the Month card kit. Exotic animals is the theme. And for this month's kit, I have 5 cards on here that I'm going to talk about, as well as what's in this kit. So those are the sketches for this month. There's a lot of really cool stuff in this kit. There are my 5 cards I created with it. And on to the first card. So the first card is collection number 1, and collection number 1 includes Always Changing Paper by Scrapping for Less, One in a Chameleon stamp set by Lawn Fawn, 18 inches of brown cord by Darice, White Flags by Darice, and a sequin mix by Scrapping for Less. So I followed sketch number 1. And for the sizes on this, these are all A2 size cards, so the cards are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So the front panel is 4 inches by 5 1/4. The second panel on there is 4 1/4 inches by 3 inches. Where I added the little shaker box or shaker part of it, that is a 2 1/2 inch square. And then the banner is, I'm not sure exactly how long it is. It was just a spare piece or a scrap piece that I had left over from after I did the sneak peek. And that one is 1 1/2 inches wide though, but you just need enough room to be able to cover it. And then I colored the chameleon, and I used him as the little accent that was going on where that kind of button is that's in the sketch. So to create the shaker card, I cut out a square, and then I cut out another square inside of it. I have about 1/4 inch frame. Then I used a piece of acetate, and I stuck that down with some double-sided score tape. And then I used foam tape to pop up the box so that I could put the shakers, the sequins in the shaker part of it. I decided I was going to stamp the sentiment inside of the shaker box, so I ended up stamping in Your One in a Chameleon. And this is a pretty simple card, but I think it's a lot of fun with the sequins and the shaker portion of it, and these sequins are just gorgeous, and they just match this paper so well. So I was kind of going back and forth on what I wanted the background to be, but like I said, I ended up deciding to stamp the sentiment on the inside. For the coloring of the chameleon, I'm using the Studio 71 markers. It's real simple. It's a small image, and it's just real simple coloring. There is definitely nothing fancy there. But I also, like I did on the sneak peek, I used the Googly Eye for his eye, because I just think that is super cute. And it kind of has the bulging eye, kind of like chameleons and lizards in general have their eyes kind of bulging a little bit. So I think that's super cute. So once I finish this out, I actually cut all of these images out by hand, which if you've ever watched any of my videos, you know how much I hate fussy cutting. And I 99.9% of the time always use my scan and cut. But I don't really know why. They were pretty simple images. Probably that's part of it, why I decided just to cut them out. But I really, after doing even these super simple images, I realized how much I really do hate fussy cutting. And I am even more in love with my scan and cut than I was previously, which I thought was pretty difficult to do, but I am. So I stamped this with some VersaFine ink. I do end up sticking it into the Misti just to make sure, in case I had to restamp it or stamp it again, to make sure I get a real crisp, dark, clean image. Especially since it was going to be on pattern paper, I wanted to make sure that you really would be able to see it well. And I believe I ended up stamping this 3 times just to, like I said, make sure that it was crisp, clean, and dark. And then I just kind of add the sequins into it and pop the shaker portion of that on there, and that is pretty much it for this card. The cardstocks of this kit are absolutely gorgeous. We got gold and silver glitter cardstock, which I do end up using in a couple of these cards, and I just love the gold. The silver is really pretty too, but just with this paper I happen to think the gold went better with it, so that's what I ended up using with it. But those are by Darice, and then we have blue raspberry, limeade, chocolate, and snow cone are the rest of the cardstocks, as well as 2 sheets of Nina 110-pound Classic Crest Smooth Solar White, and the envelopes we also get in there. So for my second card, I am using sketch number 4 for collection number 2. And with this collection, you receive Slowly and Slothly paper by Scrapping for Less, Thanks a Sloth stamp by Sunny Studio, Green Rhinestones by Darice, a leaf die by Darice, and a sequin mix by Scrapping for Less. And I just followed that, but for the dimensions that I used for this, I'm not sure how this was actually supposed to go, so I kind of did my own thing when I was putting it together. So it's, again, it's an A2 size card, and the front panel I did was 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then for the panel that is going horizontally across it, I actually cut out a piece of green from the other piece of cardstock, or from the other card that I actually made, but then I cut it down so that I could put a backing on those other 2 strips that are there on, like I said, that back panel one that's going horizontally. And for that, I cut it 2 1/4 inches by 5 1/4. And then the pieces that are on top of it are 1/4 inch by 5 1/4 inches. And then 1 3/4 inch by 5 1/4 inch. So that's that blue piece and then the brownish color with the green dots on it. Then for the panel that has the images on it, the back layer panel is 2 3/4 inches by 3 3/4 inches, and then the front panel is 2 1/2 inches by 3 1/2 inches. Then for the sentiment area, I cut a piece for the back panel at 2 1/2 inches by 1 inch, and then the piece that actually has the sentiment on there is 2 1/4 inches by 3/4 of an inch. And then I just kind of layered everything up according to the sketch. Now again, I'm using the Studio 71 markers for these little guys, and again, I did hand cut these. I did not use my scan and cut. And again, I really, really, really do not like fussy cutting. But after I finished that up and I put the card together, for the little circle that's on the card sketch, I ended up using, in this set of sequins that we get in here, they have really large sequin that is like a bluish color, and then those green rhinestones by Darice. I decided to stick it inside of the rhinestone inside of that sequin, and I just thought it looked kind of cool, especially with the blues and the greens that were in the papers. And I loved that leaf background, and I just thought it was so cute with the little sloths hanging out on the tree branches. So I did pop these up with some fun foam, and I also popped the sentiment up with some fun foam just to give it a little bit more dimension. And then I also used my gel pens, the white just to dot the eyes for the one sloth, and then the black to just outline the eyes better, the ones with his eyes like closed or where he looks like he's sleeping, hanging off on the tree. I just used that. And then as well, I also did the nails with the black gel pen, and I just, again, for a little bit of dimension to make sure. Now I will say one thing, this paper, the pattern paper, is really slick, so if you decide to stamp on it, you do need to make sure that you're kind of careful that it doesn't slide around and that you don't move. Using the Misti was easy, so that wasn't a problem, but like that one I didn't, and you just want to be really careful that you don't push too hard, because if you push too hard it could actually just slide off. But again, I use my VersaFine Black Ink to make that sentiment. Now my next card is collection number 3, and I used sketch number 3, and I just loved this card. So in the kit for collection 3, we got In the Desert paper by Scrapping for Less, Meerkat stamp by Newton's Nook Designs, Mustard color doily by Darice, 18 Inches of Twine with Flowers by Darice, Gold Brads by Darice, and a Sequin Mix by Scrapping for Less. And then with the banana split level, you also receive Go Wild Word Die by Scrapping for Less, Exotic Sentiment Stamp by Scrapping for Less, a Ranger Mini Distress Ink Cube, which I got Broken China, and then Alphabet Stickers by Darice. So what I decided to do, I wanted to use that doily, but I didn't like how it looked, so I cut it down so it kind of looks like that flower there, and then I still didn't like how it looked, so I ended up cutting it down some more to kind of create a circle, but then it was kind of lopsided just from cutting, just from cutting around it. So what I ended up doing was actually die cutting it and putting another die cut circle just from a white piece of scrap paper underneath it just to give it a little more stability. And then I also took that 18-inch piece of twine. There are 3 pieces that are wound together to make up the twine, and I separated them so that I could have that 3 pieces look like in the sketch for sketch number 3. Then what I did was took the Gold Go Wild die and I made the back panel, and the back panel, or I mean the front panel, not the back panel, the front panel of the card is actually the whole piece of the card, or the whole size of the card. So when I just pop it on white cardstock for my card, so that's 5.5 by 4.25 inches is the panel piece, the main piece, and then the top panel is 3 inches by 5.25, so that's that darker brown. And then the circle I die cut was about 2 3/8 inches, and like I said, I ended up die cutting that yellow piece that's there now, and then another white piece the same size, just again to give it a little bit of stability since it was going on top of those pieces of twine. But anyway, so I took the Go Wild die and I cut that out going sideways on the bottom, towards the bottom, but going sideways of the card. And then I cut it out with the gold glitter cardstock. And then I filled in the Go Wild with the gold, and then I put the pieces back from the pieces of the panel back into the areas like where the D is and where the O is, so that it will fill that back in. And I just thought that came out really cute and really cool. One suggestion is, if you're going to run it through a die cut machine, do not put your twine on, because it did indent it. I left it because it kind of matched up with the twine, so I wasn't too worried about it. But if it's not in the exact position that you want it, you may end up having dents in there, and it, just so you know. Then for the sentiment portion, the back panel of the sentiment portion is 1.25 inches by 1 3/4 inches, and then where the sentiment is 1 inch by 1.5 inches. I just took a little bit of antique distress oxide, antique photo. Is that what it's called? Vintage photo. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. I use it almost every day. Vintage photo, and I just brushed it around there to give it a distressed look, and then I stamped merely another birthday. And then with that Go Wild in gold, the glitter gold paper, I thought was really cute. For the meerkat, I stamped him, and then I cut him out by hand, and I popped him up on with some fun foam, but I used the Studio 71 alcohol markers to color him as well. Now, I've been using the Studio 71 alcohol markers for quite a while. They are decent, but are they Copics? No, definitely not. But are they decent to use? That's a pretty cheap. I mean, I got 48 of them, I believe, for like $50, and I think they're pretty decent for $50. If you don't have the ability to buy a whole Copic collection, or if you're getting them slowly and you need something to kind of fill in between, they're decent. They're decent markers to be able to use. So once I popped him up and put him in the center there, and I also popped up the sentiment piece with some fun foam, I added a couple sequins from the sequin mix, and then that is that card. Now for my fourth card, I used sketch number 2. And this collection you receive a Bird Talk paper by Scrapping for Less, and this is gorgeous, gorgeous paper. I think every single sheet in there almost is, I just absolutely love. And that piece with all of the leaves on it, I absolutely love. But for the bird, I decided instead of coloring them, I was going to kind of make a tie-dye with those Dylusions sprays. And I went back and forth, and I really liked how it came out, but I think I should have mixed the colors around a little more and not made so much red in one area. But I really loved this technique. So instead of actually stamping and coloring, I colored the paper, and then I stamped the images with VersaFine Black Ink, and then cut the images out right from there, so there was no coloring involved. And I just really thought that that was a cool technique, and I thought it turned out really cool. And you'll kind of see in a little bit all the different ones that I cut out. I ended up only using the one, but I saved all the rest of them so I can use them in a different, on a different project. But for this card, the measurements that I use, and I don't know if you can read them, but I had a hard time reading them, and maybe I did this differently too than how they were supposed to be, because I don't know. But anyways, so the card again is A2 size, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. The panel I cut out with the gold glitter paper for the back panel, and that is 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. So I cut the whole piece out of that gold glitter paper. And then the 2 panels that are going up and down, the floral panels, those are 1 3/4 inches by 5 inches, and I cut 2 of them out the same size. Then the strip down the center is 1 inch by 4 inches, and I cut 2 strips of the gold, and I cut those at 1/4 inch by 4 inches to add on the top and bottom of that center strip. Then the oval piece that I have, the back panel I cut out again with the gold glitter paper, and that one is about 4 1/8 inch by about 3 7/16 of an inch, and then the inside oval, or the green pattern paper, leaf pattern paper, is about 3 inches by about 3 5/8. So I stamped the sentiment on there, and then I heat embossed it with some black embossing powder that says "Hello Gorgeous," and then I just put down the bird. Now, one of the things I did to the birds also was I used the gel pen, the black gel pen, to color in the eye, the feet, and the beak, and then I used the white gel pen on the top of the beak just to give it again some more definition and to kind of make it look more like that, or more like a actual bird, parrot, whatever it is. Now, the final card is the sneak peek that I made, and with that I took those 2 flags that we get in our kit, and I used the Distress Oxide to give it some color around it. But first I stamped the images, and the stamps I used was the One in a Chameleon stamp by Lawn Fawn, and so I stamped the chameleon as well as the tree branch, and I just did a little bit of masking with that. And then I also used the Thanks a Sloth, and then I just stamped those and masked them, and then, like I said, I used the brush to use the Broken China Distress ink to give the flags themselves some color. And then I used, around the front panel of the card, I used the not twine, what was in here? The brown cord from Darice, and with that I tied it into a bow, and then I stuck the flags in there so that those were kind of holding those flags together. So again, I colored the images with the Studio 71 markers, and the measurements for this is an A2 size card, so it's 5.5 by 4.25. The front panel is 4 inches by 5.25 inches. The next panel up is 2.5 inches by 4.75 inches. The banner, so the brown piece that I cut into a banner, is 1.5 inches by 4.5 inches, and then the white piece that is kind of on top of all of that is 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And like I said, after I glued everything down or taped everything down, I just tied that cord around, tied it into a knot, and then what I also ended up doing was, after I got everything in position and I tied the bow how I wanted it, I actually put some of the Ranger's multi-medium glue on there and just let it dry like that, so it kind of makes sure that it holds its shape. Then I got my Googly Eyes out, and I got one for my chameleon, and I got 2 really tiny small ones for the sloth, because I thought this one was really cute, and since I just had the one and his eyes were open, I decided to use the little Googly Eyes so they both matched. And like I said, I just loved it. I thought that was so cute. And for this one I used the brown paper cardstock for the base of the card. When I received this kit, I did take all of the stamps out and make masks for all of them, so I already had the masks made when I started putting this together. And right now, when I'm putting this card together, I colored it, and I had the idea for the flags to stick it in the bow before I even figured out what I wanted to do, or what kind of patterns I was going to use, or how I was even going to put the card together. But I really loved this card, and I thought it turned out super cute. And like I said, I loved the Googly Eyes. And they're just kind of perfect images to be able to use those Googly Eyes. And you want to make sure that you tie the cord around the front panel, because I almost glued the panel down before I put the cord around it, and then that would have been a mistake. Then it probably wouldn't have worked out the way I wanted it to. But after I did that, I used a sentiment from both stamp sets. I used "Thanks a Sloth" at the top, "You're One in a Chameleon" on the bottom of that top panel, kind of in between the flags. And I just thought that was really cute to say, hey, thanks a sloth and you're one in a chameleon, to go with both of the images that are on there. And then to finish off this card, I just popped on some sequins from the sequin kit. All of these sequins are really gorgeous that we get in this kit. I don't know, I really love these sequins, and I love the one that comes with the birds in collection number 4. They're all bright greens and blues and reds. They're just really, really pretty. So I used VersaFine Black Ink to stamp that sentiment as well. And that is pretty much it for my 5 cards that I made with this kit. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you stick around for the end of the video. There's a couple videos that are linked that you'll be able to click on. Make sure you go to the Scrapping for Less subscription page to grab your kit if you are not a subscriber. I have a feeling these will sell out pretty quickly, so you might want to make sure that you get them, because they are a really great, or this is a really great kit. So again, I want to thank everyone for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thanks, and have a great day.